What's up, my know-it-alls? Man, I can't, guys. Here we are. We have finally arrived at the end of this season. The series, actually, of Star Trek Picard. The entire series has been a love letter to those of us who are fans of Star Trek The Next Generation, but more specifically, Season 3. This season has been genuinely special, and I just want to take a moment and reflect on how special it has been. I have absolutely loved this journey through, I want to say nostalgia, but it's not really that. It's been a journey through my past, a journey through giving us an homage to something beautiful, and I think you're going to enjoy it as well. So stick around. We're going to be right back, and I just want you to know I am super excited. So here we go. Computer, run that intro. So, yeah, where do I begin? I mean, it's one of those things where when you have an opportunity to talk about something you love and then it nails it so hard, wow. And then, of course, thank you so much, you guys, for clicking on this video. I can't express to you what it means to me that you guys take the opportunity to watch and we get to engage. So make sure you jump into the comment section throughout the video and let me know exactly what your thoughts were about any given topic that we discuss on this entire thing. I can't wait to talk more about this afterwards. Also, I've introduced a Patreon, so if you go to patreon.com/mrknowitall, you can support the show somehow there. We're also opening up memberships here, and what's great is several membership tiers that will allow you to be either a lower decker and you get a uniform shirt, or a fleet officer and you get a more advanced looking zip uniform such as this. Again, doing our best to make designs always for the big and tall, so yeah, so hopefully. All right, guys. Now, the promos and trailers we've seen have just kind of hyped up this entire encounter to a level that I didn't realize I could be this excited. On the flight there, on the way there, if you will, the president of the Federation, Anton Chekhov, voiced, of course, by Walter Koenig, supposed to be the son of Pavel Chekhov. He's giving a warning, expressing to stay away, the state of emergency, and you can hear in the background, it's rough, man. He's basically transmitting an intergalactic distress signal. So then we get the scene that we've seen in promos, which is where it's the crew on the bridge of the Enterprise D, and they're heading toward trouble, and they're scanning and they're trying to figure out what's going on.
The fleet has initiated an attack formation against Earth.
Orbital weapon platforms have been destroyed, but space dock's defenses appear to be repelling the assault. For now.
And essentially you find out that Earth is being attacked. Space dock is being bombarded. The space dock apparently is part of the planetary defense system, so it is generating a shield around the planet, is my understanding. Which is cool. I don't think I ever understood it on that level. I always thought it was the individual interplanetary. Sorry, I'm geeking on a whole new level right now. But yeah, you get the idea. So they basically admit there is no one else coming. The Enterprise D is the cavalry. It is once more. It is up to the brave crew of the USS Enterprise to save humanity. You know what? You gotta do what you gotta do, man. Enterprise is gonna enterprise. Here we go. So, by the way, can I just call out every beauty shot that you see of the Enterprise D reflects or mirrors a shot from the original series. So there's this moment when they arrive at Jupiter, and it's like the ship shows up, and it's really cool, and you see we're seeing the ship from behind. It looks like a triangle, and I remember because when I was younger as an artist and illustrator, I used to love the fact that when you would see the nacelles coming out, and it was exactly that framed up shot. So it was gorgeous. So it's a little Easter egg there when it comes to the fact that all the cinematography looks very much like, not only are they giving homage to the Enterprise D and homage to the crew and cast, but man, are they doing some homages to the filmmaking and the production design. Again, very, very cool, on point stuff. But what else would you expect from a show that's been nailing it so hard this entire season? I know I didn't expect any less. Anybody else catch Riker lean forward, and sure enough, boom, he puts his leg up on and I'm just like, Frakes must be loving life. Like, I wonder how much of that is like, hey, can you put your leg up on the thing? Or was Frakes like, he's like, oh, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna do exactly the thing I've always done. I'm just gonna lean up on this count. I loved it. I really did. I thought it was super great because you're like, it was little Easter eggs for us. Those are fun little ones. They're not like big giant ones, but they're still pretty cool. So you find out as they're going through, as they're scanning through what's coming from the Borg cube, Jack is the Borg signal. They're funneling their signal through him. He's the first naturally born Borg, and you later on find out that's far more significant than most people would think. And also, this answers a lot of the questions that have been asked. Like, I know that my fellow buffer timers, we've talked a little bit about, you know, what does all of this in terms of how the Borg is operated, like what happened, where's the Jurati Borg, where's this, where's the other, like what is the state of things if these are also the Borg and if they're this dangerous? So we're going to get into a lot of those answers shortly. As you go into this, you find out that the only way to save Earth, Picard sums it up, is that they have to sever that connection, whatever that means. And we don't know the extent to what that means yet. But they're like, okay, that's what we're doing. Boom, set a course, let's go. And that's when they do that really great shot that I was saying before. It's like a Borg, so it looks like a Borg cube, yes, but it's like a Borg superstructure, because we've seen Borg cubes, and the Enterprise D was probably, relatively speaking, decently matched. This thing is vastly bigger, and it's got these protrusions that are coming through, so almost like pylons that have shot forward or whatever, and so the Enterprise is coming up through it, and it just gives you this sense of scale. There's scenes coming up where the Enterprise is flying really quickly through some things, and the D is so big that it has to move. It moves a certain way. It's got half weight to how it moves, and you can tell that. That's what makes it marry so much to the storytelling, at least for me, on that aspect. And that's really deep geeking, by the way. I'm totally geeking out right now, so forgive me. All right, we cut to a breathtaking scene of Space Dock being bombarded by all 200 or however many ships, and it's just bars of phaser fire. It's just unrelenting, and I was genuinely like it just took me my breath away to see it for I was like, wow, I don't think I've ever seen anything that destructive in Star Trek. Maybe Nero's mining ship, possibly in the 2009 J.J. Abrams Star Trek, but for the most part in Star Trek proper, I've never seen anything that devastating. Then we cut to on board the Titan, because that's where we're at with the ships, and Seven is leading what's left of the crew, which is like, it's like a doctor, another ensign, another lieutenant, some guy who I believe we find out is like a cook or something, but they take back the bridge. As soon as they take back the bridge, they're using these weapons that when you fire on them, transports the person that you hit away. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing. And Raffi's like, or I guess Seven's like, yeah, it looks like you may have invented the first beam me up gun or beam me up device or something. I was like, all right, cool. That's cute. And it's neat too how the thing works, because they ran the transporter into the former chief engineer. Okay. After they retake the bridge, Raffi, you get this really wonderful scene of the bridge crew, our bridge crew. So we cut away from that, of course, our bridge crew, and they're just talking through the scenario. They're talking through the whole thing, and Data. How do we feel about Data expressing hate? Obviously, because he's now fully melded and merged with the lore construct, he's got a familiarity with those emotions, that they exist. I think that's why he's tempered that as well as he has. But I also feel like there's I don't know that I'm okay with how he expressed it, but it makes sense. There's a moment where Deanna can sense that Jack is being consumed by the collective. It's clear. It's very clear that he's getting harder and harder to pin down. So they're trying to find everything through brainwaves, everything else they can finally scan and figure it out. But yeah, so Picard says that you get our first of what is many, many to come goodbyes. Picard's like, it's been an honor with all of you, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, that felt super defeatist. They're going to go, it's going to be Worf, Riker, and him, and they're going to the thing, and as they leave, he turns around and says, it's been an honor. I'm like, bro, we're going to see you again, right? Right? Hello? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it feels like. And so, anyway, once they get over on the Borg cube, Riker and Worf notice that the drones are being cannibalized. The drones that are left are almost look like zombified, like they're zombie Borgs. And I felt like that was, one, a very interesting turn, especially for a species or an enemy that looks already like zombies. They gave them much more sallow looking and like even rotting flesh. Like it looked like zombie Borgs, which I was like, I didn't know that was a thing that would terrify me more. But yeah, congratulations, Terry Matalas and the folks over at Paramount Plus Star Trek. You've managed to make the Borg even more terrifying than I ever thought I could imagine. But wait, the episode's not over yet. So then, it's funny because when they arrive, Beverly's like, "Oh, we can detect him. He's in the level below you." And Picard's like, "Well, that's such and such. It's this part of the particular hive." And so we figure out. Riker's like, "How in the world do you know that?" Then you get this weird mumbo jumbo thrown out technobabble line from Beverly that basically says, oh, well, maybe some part latently in your everything, your makeup is connected still to the nose things. And I was like, I don't know if that flies in the whatever. Anyways, I'm not gonna be that nitpicky fan, but sometimes you don't have to address everything, because when you address it, it sounds like you're addressing something. The thing you don't talk about is often the thing that's just like, oh, yeah, whatever. But when you like focus on it, you're like, oh yeah, no, it's totally not that. It makes me think it's totally that. So anyway. Again, they get to a junction point. Picard's like, hey, listen, I'm not your captain anymore. I gotta go be a father. And we get another goodbye. I think this is like goodbye number 2 or 3 at this point. And again, there will be many more. So you get awful lot of last words, like I said. So then Picard finds Jack, when he finds Jack, he looks like a very young Locutus. He totally does, because he's got the same like side of the face apparatus. Funny enough, this version, he's not, his hair still properly coiffed or whatever. I think it's so funny that it's like, here's a Borg with a hairdo. Whatever, man. Full get up, the whole 9 yards, and he's ordering commands, and he's just kind of standing there and saying the things that everyone else is saying. Nothing quite sounds so scary as commands that remind you of high school cheerleading with their fight, 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 which I thought was hilarious. You get this wonderful interaction. And by the way, I'm not going to cover each and every moment of this. I'm just going to let you know it's happening throughout, because it's extraordinarily Star Trek-y, and I kind of didn't need all of it. Just saying. But basically, the Borg Queen, as voiced by Alice Krieg, and with a body double, who, forgive me, I didn't get an opportunity to look and see who was playing part of the physical person, but they chew the scenery and they have a discussion, and you do everything from Picard doing his classic "take me instead" to her being like, don't be so this and that. Like I feel like they literally just continued the argument like an old married couple from Star Trek First Contact. I'm just saying, because it looks very like it. If I were Jack, I would have woke up just to be like, Mom and Dad, come on, stop fighting. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what? It was terrible. Oh, and by the way, don't call her his mom, because whew.
You are not his mother!
So meanwhile, back at the fleet, they came up with a plan to how to get themselves out of the thing, because they have identified this is what's happening, the D's doing its thing, and they're like, okay, if it's line of sight how all the things are connected, the formation technology works, then let's cloak the ship. They cloak the ship, immediately they're disconnected from the thing, they can go around. So what do? They start scrambling shields and trying to do some strafing runs. Problem is they can't fire unless they're visible. So it keeps getting closer and closer, and then you find out like the fleet's starting to use predictive algorithms, because why wouldn't they? I mean, we're doing that today. This is one of those moments where real life echoes the progression of the universe at large. As they're beginning that, though, there's a moment where the guy who was a cook but also trained as a pilot turns around and he's like, we're gonna face that? What are we gonna do against all those ships? And Seven stands and gives a speech that is worthy of a captain in Starfleet. And you totally can tell after serving under Janeway that she definitely has learned how to give good speeches, because this is exactly what she does. She basically, she's like, we are what's left. we are Starfleet and we have to, it's like, I swear to God, if she'd have been like, we this far, no further, I would have been like, oh yeah, totally, that makes sense. I did right on. But she does great. It's a wonderful speech. I enjoyed it. Back at the Cube, the my note here says the pump off continues. Like I said, it's a through line. They're back and forth. They're fighting through this entire thing, and it's really one of those confrontations where the thing goes on for so long, it just feels very disingenuous. I just stopped believing that this argument is happening anymore at this level. Of course, Riker and Worf, the reason why they split off from Picard, they find the signal where the beacon's coming from. And they are like, okay, we got to do our thing. And all of a sudden, local zombie Borgs are sent out to attack them. And so now you get some really cool classic fighting. Worf's a beast with that sword, man. The Mek'leth, bro, do your thing. And then at one point, one of the Borg like swings on him and knocks it out of his hands. Riker goes to pick it up. Come to find out, it's heavy. It's probably way heavier, which is awesome because that means he's actually using it that fast. Thus, Worf is strong. Yay, Worf. I will say that during this encounter, I did feel like this could possibly be the end for one of them. I was like, well, they've said they've given us so many goodbyes. Someone's got to be going. So I figured maybe it's going to be Worf. Maybe Worf's finally going to get his good day to die honorable death. Because remember, for a Klingon, that would be a good ending. And they actually do that very thing, say that very thing. So, I got to admit, I was certain when this whole series began, a legacy character was going to die. I'm actually glad I was wrong. So, like, big spoilers for that. Nobody does. But I felt in this moment like there was always the possibility. One of the things I really love is, and I think I just mentioned a bit ago briefly, is the Enterprise D, when it's doing its maneuvering, looks like I would expect the ship to look. It looks heavy, it looks lumbering, and it's wonderful. Not to mention, again, all the beauty shots you saw showing us the same type of style of scenes, which was always fun. It was always pretty exciting. Seven and the Titan continue strafing the Starfleet officers as much as they can to knock out those ships and whatnot. Can we talk about Beverly being like a tactical officer of some kind? She's out there like, hey, we need to fire a wreck of this and that. And she's like, boop, 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 bam, and telling, boom, ships away, blah, 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 the whole thing. And it was like good, and everyone's like, what in the world? And she goes, well, that's happened in 20 years, y'all. And I'm sitting here going, yep, it's true, 100%. So they arrive at the center of this thing, and Geordi assesses fast, and Data confirms it. If they destroy the center thing, the beacon, it's going to create a cascade effect that's going to destroy the entire cube, and they're going to have minutes, if that, to get out. And so it's scary, and so that's what they're looking at. Data, they know that Geordi says to him, "There's nobody who can navigate us through that thing," and Data is committed. He's like, no, I can do this, I can do it. And they're like, are you crazy, isn't that? He just says, he goes, yeah, I get it, it's impossible. And then he looks at it and says, I feel it in my gut. And I loved that moment. I felt like, what else would you have if you have an emotional, and not to mention the fact that he has witnessed, when he was just an android, impossible things happen. Hasn't he? Come on, man. Absolutely he has. So it's unreal. But Data makes the run. He does it, and it's amazing. And what's great is Brent Spiner's such a magician, looking like he's doing stuff. And it was just like, he's just like going, and his hands are flying, and they're crisscrossing and everything, and you're just like, wow. It was unbelievable. It was very cool. Space Dock has fallen. And it's one of the most amazingly tragic things I've ever seen. The Earth is now completely defenseless before an assimilated Starfleet. And they're out of time. So when Picard, realizing that this argument is moot, begins just pulling cables out of Jack, and Borg Queen's like, she's like, you better be careful, because he has to want to leave. And if he wants to leave, he absolutely can. And so what does Picard do? He's like, I'm not going to abandon my son. And so he takes one of the things out of his head and goes, pa, and sticks it into his own neck. And immediately he's in he's with the collective. And you get this very interesting interpretation of him in front of Jack, and there's this greenness that represents the Borg stuff, because green equals Borg, whatever. And they're talking, and Jack is very much like, this has been my fate, this is what I was geared for, this is what I'm made for, this and that. Picard's very anti-fatalist, where Jack is very fatalistic. And finally, Picard's like, okay, well, if you're staying, then I'm staying. Then I will stay here with you, because I'm not leaving you. And that sacrifice tips the scale for Jack. Now, I'm not going to get into all the ways in which I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't believe the character they've outlined for us would behave that way, but I'm okay with. I mean, we all do things out of character. Again, traumatic events always are capable of altering the things we perceive around us. Anyway, so. But Jack does in fact make the decision to, okay, I will not be alone. I will have my family. I'm good. I don't want to pull him into my misery. I will go with them. And so boom, he wakes up. Then we cut back to the Enterprise D. It fires on the core. Worf and Riker. We get another goodbye, and it's the Good Day to Die one. And then of course it wouldn't be Star Trek without the last minute rescue. Tell me that shot of the Enterprise like swooping in like it's a shuttle. By that I just mean like, because it's you seeing the exterior of the ship. Normally you don't do that in real life other than through a window or something. So when they're down there and looking and you see the thing come around, I was like right on, and we're underneath. Looking upward, so all you see is this unfettered just sky and the underbelly of the Enterprise. Very cool. I enjoyed it. I thought it was awesome. Right at that, as the thing is exploding, this ripple explosion, Seven, Raffi, the rest of the Titan crew, non-assimilated, are confronted by Sydney and the other and all the LaForge girls, as well as the other officers and ensigns, all coming in, and right then. The core finally, the thing ripples out, the signal dies, and everyone begins to de-assimilate. And Seven comforting Sydney is a wonderful moment. And I feel like, and I need everybody. I'm not. This is me speaking not as a Voyager fan, because I really wasn't. I liked parts of Voyager, but I wasn't a big Voyager fan. You can see Janeway's influence, the influence of a powerful female captain who understands how to temper comforting, and because when she wraps her arms around Sydney, it's like she basically is saying to her, it's going to be okay. And she's also coming from a place of understanding, because she was a former Borg drone who grew up that way and has come this far to now be the captain of the Titan, or in command of the Titan, whatever. As the story wraps up, we now get to see through Riker's exposition, a captain's log of, I assume, aboard the Enterprise. We get this, and it's a very nice moment, reminiscent the two ships parting ways. It's very reminiscent of the Undiscovered Country, where we got that send off to the original crew, the TOS crew. But yeah, this has been a wonderful episode. And by the way, it's not over yet. They put so much into this episode. You find out that Beverly is now Admiral, and she is head of Starfleet Medical, which is great. And she's devised a way to detect, secretly under the wire, to detect changelings. And I think that was awesome. We get a wonderful moment with Tuvok, because they talk about how changeling people have brought back, and some of them lived and survived. And so you have Admiral Tuvok, who talks about Starfleet's come to a decision based on her being insubordinate, this and that, blah blah. You're captain, you're this and this, and she's ready to, of course, be fatalistic, like whatever. If you're gonna do it, just do it. And he proceeds to play her last performance review, which would have been just before all of this started. And it's a wonderful send-off from Shaw, expressing that she is, she's this, she's that, she's, but he goes, she would break the rules, yes. He goes, but maybe those rules were broken already. And you see this wonderfully, I see someone who genuinely, this jibes perfectly, in my opinion, with the character he was. I believe this is a guy who internally and to himself could reconcile the past, even if when faced with it, he was a bit brusque to it. So I believed it, and I loved it, and I loved that. And she's promoted to captain and given the ship. We then get another goodbye here. because you see Worf and Raffi. They have a very special goodbye because apparently someone broadcast Raffi's service record to the galaxy, and her family gets to see the hero that she has been, even though she was unrequited and she couldn't tell anybody about it because it was all classified. But with this, obviously, this right now you have a big opportunity because a lot of holes have to be filled, Starfleet intelligence and whatnot. So there's a lot of room for that kind of stuff. But so that, and then of course, it's the Data gets his goodbye. Data gets his therapy, and so with Deanna, and which is great. And then the Enterprise D takes her place among the fleet at the Fleet Museum, and that's a really good thing. And they get to say another goodbye. This goodbye I'm down for, which is the everyone saying and turning the lights off on the D, and you get to hear Majel Barrett's voice one more time. And Riker even nice little nod saying, I really like that voice. And it's like, yeah, you do. So, anyways, a lot of people are going to love what happens next, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. Let's go. And this is not normal for me, so you guys who have been paying attention, just kind of let's go. I can reconcile Jack joining Starfleet, especially because he was so adamant that he would never do it. Traumatic experiences have a tendency to make people rethink and reevaluate things about their lives, and I can see him saying, okay, I need to find new points of connection. And that makes sense to me. I can reconcile that thought process. Seven, Raffi, and Jack, all assigned being the same ship, not a problem even. I love the fact Raffi's going to be the number one. I love the fact that Jerry Ryan's going to be captain of the ship, and I thought it was, and apparently he's a counselor, ship's counselor of some kind. Which, I mean, maybe it's because he's got that insightful wisdom, I guess, and that British accent, whatever. Maybe he'll switch to blue. I think renaming the Titan to the Enterprise G was I didn't need it. You sold me on the merits of the Titan, its name, its crew, its valor, and I feel like after everything they went through to go, and here we go, a brand new name. It's like the Titan spilled blood. The Titan earned a place. Not to mention, this wasn't the first Titan, okay? This was the Titan A. This was a ship with its own legacy. And I feel like that was I understand it. And yes, there's precedent for it. That doesn't mean that it felt any less uncomfortable for me in this moment. I don't know. I feel like maybe it's because I loved Shaw so much. I feel like Shaw, his sacrifice and the sacrifice of his ship and crew was the Titan, not the Enterprise. The Enterprise D did a wonderful job holding down the fort and making the name proud, and the F stood tall as it said its goodbye and whatever else, and who knows what happened to the E. But, so, yeah, man, I don't know. I could live without it. And then, of course, I loved the poetic nature of the crew playing cards. It was great. It was you got the nice callback to the top and whatnot. I did not need the button. I did not need it. I didn't need Q giving Jack some kind of Picard send-off. I didn't need that validation. I felt like Jack has validated himself as a character. I didn't need John Delancey. I didn't need them to. Don't get me wrong. In my own headcanon, I'm kind of looking past the more obtuse parts of season 2. But at the same time, I don't know that I needed John Delancey this right. I don't know if I needed this or not. So, or at the very least, it would have been interesting for someone to be like, "Hey, my father knew your father." How much more interesting would it have been to introduce a new? If you're going to do this anyway, introduce a new Q and have that new Q be the one who says, maybe that's what it is. Maybe this is Q reborn. Maybe that's what happens is as a Q you reach a terminal velocity and like a Big Bang, you come back down, and this is him rebirthed, and it's like, but he's still his son. Almost Doctor Who-ian, where you have your own legacy or whatever. And I could easily have, that would have been so much more interesting than the member berries of John Delancey. I didn't need that. That was not good fancy. On the face of everything that has been brilliant, I didn't need that. I'm trying to be much more critical because I feel like this has been such a beautiful love letter, and this show has had so many wonderful things that I wanted it to stick the landing. And it did, by the way. It did. It absolutely stuck the landing. there you go. Now you know. And if knowing is half the battle, you're halfway to being a know-it-all yourself. Here's my know-it-all index for this episode specifically. Just this episode. I'm going to give this episode a 9. The episode gets a 9 for me. Now, I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was exactly it was everything I wanted this to be. It didn't. There were some leaps in logic that I needed to connect dots with, but otherwise, I had a wonderful time. I hope you did too. Comment below. Let me know your thoughts on that. I also wanted to take just a little bit of time, which I know we're already. This definitely is going long, but this has been such a monumental journey. Seeing them, seeing the crew, seeing what this show means to me. I'd love to talk more with you guys about it. Share your stories about what this episode meant and what certain moments meant. I really want to share those with you. This has been a very emotional morning for me, and the thing is, I know I'm going to probably watch this episode another dozen times or more. We're going to talk again. I want to make sure that we get an opportunity to sit together. So let's talk again next Thursday. I'll see you guys next Thursday, no matter what. And we'll enjoy ourselves talking about Star Trek and looking forward to Strange New Worlds and some things coming forward. I feel like the discussion about legacy is important. By legacy, I mean the prospect of Star Trek legacy or a Star Trek legacy show. What does that potentially look like? I feel like you are right now at a place where you can take the same thought process. I don't mean to do this a cookie cutter, but take the same thought process as what is being currently done with Strange New Worlds, and you allow new characters to establish themselves, classic characters, legacy characters. You bring people in. There's no reason that you can't have, especially with Jack on the show, Beverly would be a recurring cameo, whether it's calling home or something along those lines. You can have 1 or 2 Picard cameos, though. Kind of inform us a little bit about how him and his scenario or his situation is going. I feel like there's a lot of room for some of those things. I feel like I wish, if they explore anything, I would love for Seven to feel like she has an obligation to find out who Shaw really was. Because I feel like she would be the kind of person who, while thankful and having lots of gratitude, would see ultimately that there was more to that story and want to know more. I feel like it's honorable. Was I okay with Tuvok being the one who promoted Janeway? Yeah, I was. I mean, promoted Seven. I was. Would I have preferred Janeway to do it? Of course, but they may be saving her for something else, and I'm okay with that too. I've enjoyed the show. I've enjoyed the show a lot. I thought Star Trek Picard, from the very beginning, was geared to give us something new. I liked how season 1 gave us a look at where Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc Picard was then. And that it wasn't necessarily where we thought it might be. And that was okay. I don't think it was counter to, a lot of people were like, oh, it's like The Last Jedi or whatever else, which people felt took the story of Luke Skywalker divergently. And some people thought that Picard going the way he went in season 1 was divergent. I didn't. I was cool with it. I thought it was really good. Season 2, I also thought was as a season. I think there were a lot of complicated bits. I think the story was bigger than it needed to be and didn't have to be that exorbitant or over exaggerated. And then I think season 3 is perfect. I do. I think season 3 is perfect in how it told its story, how it handled legacy characters. This is how you do nostalgia when it's not for nostalgia's sake. This nostalgia felt like it said, hey, we're going to let you look in. We're going to give you a rare opportunity, fans of a thing. We're going to actually go back to those characters, revisit them, and let you see how they're doing today as compared to where they were before. And that was beautiful. And that was wonderful. And that's why I believe this will go down as one of the greatest seasons of television, if not just of Star Trek, ever. So good job, you guys. I was super excited. I loved this whole thing. Here's the know-it-all index for the entire series. For season 3, rather. The entire season of the show. My entire series review is a 9.5. It gets a 9.5 for me. That's not a genuine average. That's my heart, what my heart says. I'm following my gut like Data. So, 9.5. Let me know your thoughts, man. I would love to talk over this whole thing with you guys. We'll discuss more in the comment section, of course. As always, I'll see you guys next week. Never forget, everyone loves a know-it-all.